watching the Illusionist Interrogation with the travesty starring Shaun J.
I am the Travesty, and today we're going to be learning a bit about our next guest. He's a keynote speaker, creator, and magician. He's appeared on Fox, ABC, NBC, Masters of Illusion on the CW, and also the TEDx stage. Put your hands together for Shaun J. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm hanging in there. I'm surviving. I am here. I am healthy. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on this T-Rav travesty.
Have you been doing a lot of Zoom shows?
I've been doing a few here and there. I'm not gonna state an overinflated figure. I do a couple here and there. It's not like
700 this week, no.
Yeah, well, no, there's 700 earlier today, and then
okay.
Throughout the week we multiply that times 7, and that's the real figure that I don't want anybody knowing.
Okay.
But yeah.
What a schedule.
I've done a few.
Let's start this off by going back in time.
Okay.
What got you into magic?
Great question. So I always tell everybody I was 12 years old, but I think I was actually younger than that when I was initially exposed to magic. I remember when I was really little, my cousin used to perform. He wasn't a professional, he was just a hobbyist, and every time I would go visit my cousin, we would drive out of town, we'd stay at family's house, and my cousin would do a few card tricks, and I never really thought about this as anything I wanted to do until I was about 12. So I had been seeing magic from the time I was like 4 or 5, I think. But then when I was 12, I just said, okay, this is something I want to do. And then I haven't looked back ever since. It's been one heck of a ride.
Who are some of the bigger names that you looked up to when you got started?
Sure. So, well, when I got started, my first intro to magic was at the local library, and those were just books, any books that were off the shelf. So the names that I could think of, actually I can't think of many names. I mean, they weren't any mainstream names. They were just whoever's library book I picked up. But I will actually give credit to, there was a guy, I don't remember the title of the book, but I mentioned it in the Mum article that was done, the story. His name is Bob Friedhofer, I think from New Jersey, and he had this book in the library, and he taught some really great tricks, and that was one that I referred to frequently. And it's funny, I actually met him. I went up to Tannen's when I was like 13 or 14, and guess who was in there? I happened to recognize him from the back of the book cover when I first started magic, and I introduced myself, and I said, hey, this is who I am, and I just want to let you know that you were one of the very first books that I read. It's thanks to you, got me really hooked in magic. But after that, I started working at a local magic shop here in North Carolina where I live, and I would do the demo and the demos behind the counter and the inventory, and I got exposed to all the good stuff like Michael Amar's Easy to Master, Card Miracles, Paul Harris, Art of Astonishment. So I looked up to Amar, Paul Harris, Jeff McBride, big influence from the time that I really got into it from the age of 12 up until today. We are very good friends. I consider him a mentor, and I've learned a heck of a lot from him over the years.
Nice. Yeah, he's actually one of the reasons I got started in magic too. His
He's
master
the reason
team.
A lot of people got started, I think. He's inspired so many people.
When was your first official show?
My first official show, I think, was when I was 13. And it wasn't a formal show. It was actually a street show. And that's actually how I started. A lot of people don't even know that. I started off as a street performer, where my mom, actually, she supported me. I give her full credit. She supported me a whole lot. When she found out I wanted to do this, she said, oh, that's great. In fact, the story is that she told me this later down the road. She said, when I was young, Shaun, I wanted to be one of 3 things when I grew up. I wanted to be either a photographer, a veterinarian, or a magician. And you, Shaun, became the magician, and I became the photographer. She did professional photography. So it's really interesting how that kind of worked out. But yeah, she would take me to these local very small art festivals, and I would set up a little sandwich table with a tip jar, and I would say that was my first show per se, and people would walk by and I would perform. I would do some routine with delights and that I picked up at the magic shop in Myrtle Beach. We went there, and I did few things off of the Easy to Master Card Miracles series, and I think I was doing Matrix at that time. I think I had an expanded shell of some sort. So that was my first show, street shows.
Now, what's your favorite type of crowd to perform for? Is it street shows? Is it large audience? What's the easiest? What's the hardest? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
So doing a proper street show with a large crowd that's into what you're doing, I've always found that to be the most energizing. It's very challenging. It's very difficult to do now with the current state of the world. Street performing is very difficult. So I'm not doing a lot of street performing these days, but I'd say that is the most energizing when I was doing it. And then my next favorite is performing close-up magic for adults, because they don't give me a hard time like a bunch of children do. And I give children's performers so much credit because they have a lot of patience. And it's mostly just a patience game. And I learned patience, but I mean, if I were to pick a favorite, close-up for adults, because I get to do all the challenging stuff, all the hardcore sleight of hand stuff that I like to do.
All right. What was your first TV appearance?
My first TV appearance was, I think, on the local news when I was, how old was I? I think I was like 17, I think. And they were introducing me as it's either 16 or 17, and I remember the anchors were introducing me as the Triangle's youngest magician. And by Triangle, I mean here in North Carolina where I am, we have 3 cities. They're all within about a half an hour, 45 minutes of each other: Raleigh, North Carolina, Durham, and Chapel Hill. And so the way they're laid out on the map, Raleigh's here, Chapel Hill, Durham, it makes a triangle, so that's why they say Triangle. So I was the youngest magician in Triangle. So yeah, it was a local news appearance. Yep.
How nervous was you?
I was extremely nervous. My heart was beating out of my chest. I would say I over-prepared for it, and
hey, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it was like I prepared so much, and then as I was looking at the camera, but I could see in my peripheral, the clock ticking, just realizing how short of a time they give you. And then before I knew it, it was all over, and I said, okay, this wasn't bad at all. It's just having a natural conversation like we're doing here, but it's timed, and me as the magician, I have to make it exciting, and I have to engage with the anchors. And that clip's out there, still out there. It's actually not that bad. It's pretty good. I do say so myself. It's worth showing.
We can link it down below. No.
Okay, sure.
Oh man, you're like, no, please.
I mean, no, not bad at all. It's fine.
How much has changed for you during the pandemic, and have you learned a new skill that you wouldn't have if this didn't happen?
Everything has, literally, just about everything has changed since the pandemic. I'm not going to lie. Literally, I'm just like most of the other magicians out there. I would say 99.9% cancel culture has affected me, my schedule. That's the truth. Most of my stuff got wiped. Here's an interesting story that would make for a good interview. This is all true. I had been working to get on a cruise ship for years and years and years, and I saw many of my other friends go down that path, become very successful, and it was a dream of mine as well. And I said, hey, maybe one day I could start working the cruise ships too. And so, what was it? I had landed a cruise agent in December of 2019, and then he told me it's going to be a slow start because you're new, and so just keep in touch, and things will eventually ramp back up spring, summer. So not much, of course, happened, but then come March, the beginning of March, I started getting emails, and they said, hey, what about this, what about that? He started pitching me for gigs, and then he said, I got something for you. What is it, the second week in March? And it's, the weekend, if I remember correctly, the weekend of March 13th. Your gig starts March 13th and it goes throughout the whole week. And man, I was stoked. And little did I realize the reason why I was the only one that got the gig at that time is because the whole coronavirus thing was, screwing up all of the travel regulations for the regular performers that were on the ships. And since I was new to the roster, I was the only one that hadn't been out at sea traveling for at least 2 weeks. I had been on land for at least 2 weeks. So like I was like the only guy that hadn't been exposed. And so I was going to be like the guinea pig. And then after thinking about it and after seeing what was going on in the news and after seeing, all the ships out there getting, ravaged by coronavirus, I'm not going to say what ship I was supposed to be on, but anybody who knows the news, it was the ship that got the most bad press. And after I started seeing that, I said, okay, maybe it's not a good time to go on the ships. And so it was determined that I did not go on the ship. And I never did my first cruise gig, so I'm still waiting. I might be waiting for a long time. So everything changed. Since then, I've been figuring out how to get a setup for a Zoom show, which I've figured out a pretty decent setup. I've done a few. I did my own ticketed shows a couple times earlier on. I did some things back in May. And then I did a couple things over the summer. And I don't know, the longer these restrictions go on, I think the more people are going to want the Zoom shows. I've done a few here and there. And everything has changed, man. It's crazy. It's like everything has changed. And to answer the second part of your question, the layout of my place has changed, my schedule has changed, the way I do business has changed, and yes, I am tapping into other skills. I am very creative, I would say, or just I have a really good imagination, and prior to all of this stuff, I was locked in a groove of working restaurants and doing your standard birthday parties, corporate events, all the standard things that most working magicians do, and I didn't have time, or let's put it this way, no, that's an excuse. I didn't make time. A lot of my time was already taken, and I didn't make enough time to work on the creative stuff, but now I have more time, for sure. So I'm getting a chance to, working on a lot of projects, doing 3D design, 3D modeling, and printing for a lot of great magicians right now. I'm working on a really cool project. I'll give him a shout out for Mike Michaels. Mike Michaels is known as the Mechanical Magician, and he's just releasing these really cool wristwatches on Chronolab. So I'm making some of the parts that go inside the watches for him. So check out Chronolab.
What was the most impactful magic trick that you've seen from another performer as a kid and recently?
That's a good question. What was the most impactful magic trick that I've seen when I was a kid and versus like
Now.
Recently?
Yeah.
This is going to sound kind of silly, but the most impactful magic trick when I was younger, when I was a kid, have to say it really was a properly performed French drop. I remember this guy did it, and he rubbed the coin into his arm, and then he pulled it out of his ear or something, and I really thought that the coin actually went inside of his arm, and I was waiting for it to watch it travel along the path before he made it reappear again. That had a really big impact. It's as silly as that sound, I was floored by that. And then I would say lately, probably my biggest jaw drop moment, I would say, was when I was last at Magic Live. I saw the most amazing act by a performer named Reed Chang. OMG, my jaw dropped so many times. I don't know if there's that much footage of his act out there. There's little snippets, but oh man, that just blew me away. Reed Chang.
All right. What is the best and worst thing that's ever happened to you on stage to either you or an assistant? And have you ever had an audience member wreck your show?
I would say, yeah, I've got so many stories. Here's a funny story that I always tell when it didn't wreck the show. It threw off the show a little bit. It was hilarious, totally unexpected, and it was actually, I eventually came back, but it was really funny. So when I was street performing, and if you talk to any other street performers, they'll have story upon story, because when you do that many shows as a street performer, you meet all kinds of people from all walks of life, and you'll get stories real fast if you keep performing. So this was when I was about 15, 16. I was doing some sponge ball routine in my street show, and I brought up a little girl. I don't know, she was about maybe 6 or 7, very well dressed. They had maybe gone out to eat for the weekend, or maybe they just had gotten off from church or something. I mean, she was really well dressed for her age. And when you do sponge balls, you put the ball in the person's hand, they close their hand around the ball, magic in their hand, boom, and they multiply or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I put the ball in her hand, and I told her to squeeze tight, as all that's just part of the routine. And I noticed prior, but I didn't make the leap in my head. She had the most beautiful nails. These were fake applied nails that she put on just to look her best with her family. I mean, like I said, she really went overboard. I mean, she had these glue-on nails, the pearl necklace, and the whole works. So she was squeezing really tight, and I made the joke about the knuckles turning white and the fingernails digging into her hand. And what happened was she had actually squeezed so tight that the nails that were digging into her hand actually cracked off the glue on the back of her real nails. So when I said, open your hand real fast, she went like this, and you saw this spray of fake nails just fly everywhere. It was like these red nails go whoosh, and it was like in slow motion. You could see them just, cascade to the floor like confetti. And at first, she was, and then I was, because I wasn't expecting it, and then she started laughing, I started laughing, the audience was like in tears, and then she just, nobody cared about the sponge balls, how many flew out of her hand, because all the nails went everywhere, and then the sponge balls just went rolling, and she started picking up these little fake nails. That was a pretty hard moment to recover from. It's kind of, we all laughed it off. It was like a 5-minute bit that just kept like haunting me throughout the show. So that was I don't know, a bad moment, good moment, bad and good at the same time. I have a lot of those random crazy things that have happened. Another bad thing that I kind of turned into a good thing, I guess, it was still really annoying, is I was doing a corporate event on stage in a banquet hall, and I'm sure there's some pros out there that have had this happen. And it was always the same hotel. I had performed in this hotel before. The fire alarm went off right as I was about to start my finale. That's a tough one to recover from, because once the beeping starts, you usually can't get it to stop that easily. It's very hard to get it to stop. So, I had them in the palm of my hand, and I don't know what, I had like 5 to 7 minutes left in the show, and I was ready to close it, and they were right there with me. And then you hear boop, 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 and then I looked up, and then you see the white lights start strobing all over the room. And that I had to just kind of ad-lib some lines to cover that, to just react to that. I couldn't just stand there in silence, because you gotta somehow keep the flow going. I mean, that's very difficult to recover from. And then there was some like automated voice that came on the intercom. Everybody stay calm. Yeah. Please remain seated. And then I think they eventually said, you're going to have to please exit the room. And then they were trying to kick everybody out. It was pretty sad. So eventually they got the people back in. They got whatever that thing was under control. There was no fire. It was just a faulty alarm, which that was the real sad part. It was just, the alarm just went wonky that night. And that night, actually, because of whatever I said, I don't know, whatever ad-lib jokes I said, and probably because they felt sorry for me, I got a standing ovation. So it was, I think I got a standing ovation because they were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe he made it through. I feel so bad for this kid. Oh man, he deserves it." Oh, I didn't have to. I didn't have to force it. They just did it. So it was probably, like I said, because they felt bad for me because it was pretty, it was pretty insane. So those are some good stories for you, both good and bad. It kind of was bad to begin with, but it ended up being like a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
During the show, is your persona, is it like a extended version of you that's just a bit more out there? I mean, how did you come up with it? And what is more important to you for your character, comedy or skill?
The character that I play, it's not a created character. Some people are really good at that. And I wasn't, and it would not feel genuine at all for me to do something like that. So, I don't know, I've always just been, it's like a magnified version of who I really am. Like, before I even started magic, I was like a lot of magicians. I was extremely shy, and I didn't even want to talk to many people at all. And then it got me out of my comfort zone, and then it gave me just some power, some empowerment to talk to people. And then I just kind of took a liking to the style, not copying, but just I enjoyed the conversational style of like Paul Harris, for instance, or David Williamson as well. It was like a magical conversation with a friendly person. And that's kind of something that came natural to me. So it's an extended version of myself. And I would say those people influenced me a lot in the beginning. All those Amar tapes influenced me a lot. And it was pretty, I will be the first to admit that I had learned these routines off these tapes word for word, and when I first started, I was in my Amar phase for a while where I was an Amar clone, which was really weird to watch a 12-year-old kid recite Michael Amar patter verbatim. That was really weird, or David Williamson or whatever. It was just really strange. But I guess people let me do it. They knew I was young and I was making a good attempt. But now it's just me and just chilling with people. I'm very laid back, so that's always my style.
Yeah, when you're a kid, you can't be expected to be
right
totally you out there.
Sure.
What's something you did as an amateur that you would never do now?
I would say maybe I would want, as an amateur, and this is another common mistake, I would say probably want to take any gig that came in, whereas now I'm a little more selective. Yeah. And another thing that I did as an amateur that I would never do now, just simply from the lack of knowledge, when I first started, I was using, in my street shows, a crate taxi amp, but it wasn't the right one for vocals. It was the one for instruments, so it delivered the worst sound quality, and it was extremely muffled, and I had like the crappiest sound quality, and it was really bad, so I wouldn't do that now. I know better now.
Yeah. What's some advice that you would give someone starting out that wants to be a full-time magician?
I would say, wants to start now, well, I would say get really good at social media, because that seems to be where it's at now, especially because it's very difficult to connect with people on actually in a live performance setting. So now's a good time to build up your social media. Now's a time to tap into all of your skills and passions. Even though you might like magic, there are other skills too, I'm sure, and passions that might be existing in your mind, in the back of your head, and try to combine those passions to make a unique art form, which took me a real long time to do, because for the longest time I just wanted to do magic and just wanted to be a magician. But I always had people telling me, Shaun, there's going to be other passions, and once you discover those other passions, if you can incorporate them into your magic, then that will help you when you're creating original material. That'll help set you apart from everyone else. And so that's what this pandemic has forced me to do, to just stop thinking about only magic and to look at some of my other passions. And the key word here is passion, especially now. I mean, it can't be just a fleeting hobby. I mean, you have to really be serious about it now if you want to make any headway. It's extremely difficult, not going to lie, but there are people that are making lemonade out of the lemons. There are ways around it. It's going to force a lot of creativity. The limitations are forcing creativity in the people that are willing to hang in there. So that's my advice, my 2 cents.
All right. Let's take a completely random side turn here. Have you ever worked with animals in your show? If so, what kind?
Never worked with animals. Never wanted to work with animals. I've heard so many stories about animals, good stories, bad stories. So I just said, nah, I'm not going to work with animals. So I never did.
I think it's a smart choice in my opinion.
Yeah. Especially all the dove workers, man.
Mm-hmm. I used to have some. It's rough.
I love watching great dove magic, and I respect great dove magicians. And I also, I feel for them, because the restrictions, every year they just get tighter and tighter and tighter. Travel restrictions, it's tough. So I give them a lot of credit for the work that they've done. I could never go there. That's just me.
Right. Have you ever had your act stolen, physical props or mentally?
I've never had a prop actually from my magic show stolen. I believe I've had my phone stolen.
Oh, man.
Right out of my case when I was doing a public event at a mall. Actually, the case I think was on stage. Maybe it was right when it was taken off stage and I just looked away for a second. But yeah, I remember having my phone actually stolen right out of my case. I had to get a new phone. But as far as my props, thankfully, I don't remember any of my props ever being stolen. That's
good.
Great. Yes.
From when you started in magic to now, do you think the average magician is getting more skilled, or are we getting lazy using gimmicks?
I think that I don't know if that question is properly worded, and I'll tell you why. Just in my thought process, I don't think a magician that uses gimmicks is lazy, because the audience doesn't know. Yeah. To the audience, it's just the effect, whatever the effect is. If there's somebody that like. The way I would judge how a performance went is, let's say you have 2 magicians, and one magician does a whole act full of gimmicked props in some way, and then the other magician does a full act with only knuckle-busting sleight of hand. Well, if the audience loves the guy who has a show full of props and gimmicks, and it's just like out of control laughter, crying, takes them through all the emotions, standing O, and then the guy who's doing knuckle-busting sleight of hand just kind of gets an reaction from the audience, I would say the guy with all the gimmicks and props, I think he's the better performer. On that same token, I don't think purchasing gimmicks and props makes a magician a better performer. I think most of it has to do with the performer, and I'll just bring up because you've worked with him, and this is how I know you, like Ed Alonzo, for instance. I believe he's one of those rare, talented folks that can take almost anything and just make it just a wonderfully entertaining performance piece. He can take the smallest of little things and make it into a stage-filling mystery, or even a big box, or like a classic, like the rabbit box where you ring out the rabbit. Just because of who he is, whether it's a gimmick or a prop or not, it becomes really entertaining. So I don't know. I would say magicians become lazy when they rely only on copying everything that they've seen all the time, and there's never any. I don't want to get myself in trouble here. I mean, there's professionals, there's hobbyists. So hobbyists can really do whatever they want. It's just a hobby. But I would say if a person wants to call themselves a professional performer, I would say, yeah, it's lazy to just go out and buy something and just perform it by the book, or like it shows in the little pamphlet of instructions. Whereas
some people rely too much on that script that comes with.
yeah, that's I guess what I'm saying. So I mean, like, hobbyists, fine, it's a hobby, fine. But if you want to consider yourself a professional, I would say at a certain point after you've passed the beginner stages, which you're allowed to copy and imitate, but then, like, as my mentor Jeff McBride would always say, imitate then innovate. It's okay to imitate when you're first starting, but then the goal is to eventually start innovating, and that's where you find yourself and you become your own type of performer, like Ed Alonzo. He's a wacky guy, and he has everything that he touches or brings into his show gets that Ed Alonzo touch. You know that.
He seems to add a story to everything. You just got to believe it when he hits it.
It's a great, he's a great, well, I mean, he's I don't know if is he an actor first? Was he an actor prior?
Well, he was in the magic pretty young as a kid, so I don't know.
So he's maybe both?
Both, I guess. Maybe it's the acting skills that he puts into the magic that makes it work, but...
I think so. I think a lot of professional magicians often forget that we are actors playing the part of magicians, so acting skills are important when you become a professional. That's almost a better way to answer the question.
Okay. What's your favorite act to perform, and least favorite if you got one?
My favorite act to perform is what I currently close my show with. It's something that uses light and a light bulb and some fancy electronics that I created and some 3D printing stuff that I almost did on Masters of Illusion this past time, but it didn't just due to circumstances. Didn't happen this go around, but I'd like to do it next time. That's my favorite thing to perform. I consider that heavily my own. I've had a lot of my own touches and work on that. My least favorite thing to perform is probably, I would say, I don't know, the sticks, the Chinese sticks. I haven't figured out a good reason to perform it. There are some people that actually have great routines for it, but it's not my thing. Let's just say that it's not my thing.
What's the hardest trick you've ever had to learn, whether it's in your act or not, and what's the hardest to perform?
The hardest trick I've ever learned, I don't know if it was a trick per se or a flourish, was something out of the Art of Astonishment books. When I was reading the Paul Harris books, there's something that's supposed to be a myth. It's called the perpetual coin myth. Perpetual coin myth, the perpetual coin spinning myth. And it's supposed to be a myth. It's not supposed to be actually possible. I don't remember what book it's in, but if you, when you listen to this replay, magicians, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. It's insanely difficult. It's literally, the write-up is funny too, but it's like you take 3 coins and you set them in a certain way in your hand to where you're like supposed to squeeze. You put 1 coin on top, 1 coin like this, 1 coin like this, and 1 coin like this, and you're sandwiching this coin vertically. And apparently by squeezing your fingers and relaxing your hand like this, the tension and release, it will cause the center coin to spin a little bit. And that is almost, I would say, it's pretty much a myth, but I remember when I was practicing it years and years and years ago, I got it to turn a little bit. Got it to turn just a wee bit. I never got a full 360, but it turned a little bit, and then it would always fall, and I tried, and eventually I gave it up. So it's kind of still a myth. It's insanely difficult, but I bet there's somebody out there that can do it.
Yeah, leave it in the comments below if you can.
Well, I would be very surprised if there's anybody that can actually do it, and if whoever it is, I'd love to see it. Another really difficult thing that I ended up being able to do is called the simple switch. That's in Paul's books. David Blaine does it a lot. It's where it's based on a what's his name? I don't remember. I I don't remember the credit, but it's basically where you flip 2 cards and then they switch places in midair as they flip. Simple switch, like that. It's pretty cool. Did I answer the question? That's the one that I did learn and I can do.
Yeah. Hardest to perform? I mean, is that
hardest to perform? Yeah, probably for me, simple switch. It's
Okay.
a card move. It's pretty tough. There's many other card moves that are very difficult. The curly Q move, oh boy, I mean some of the gambling moves, some of the turnovers where you have cards like in the gambler's, not the gambler's cup, whatever this is, and then you switch cards in and out. All that Jason England stuff is really hard. So I played around with that for a little while, but Jason is much better at that than I am. I'll leave that up to him.
Earlier you'd said who some of the bigger names were that got you into, that you looked up to in Magic.
Sure.
Is there any current day people, like who would you put, for example, like on your Mount Rushmore of Magic? I mean, top 4, dead or alive, right now.
My Mount Rushmore of Magic. Part of it is behind me on the wall, I believe. Let's see if we could get. There we are. Right there.
Yeah.
There's a poster that I got from a show, signed, and then I have this, which I wouldn't say, well, I would say he's a magician, MC Escher. I really like his work. He's not a performance magician, by the way. He's just he's known for his drawings and art. And yeah, he has the most amazing optical illusion drawings. He was known for, I don't know, you've probably seen that famous drawing of a hand drawing another hand like this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's MC Escher. And it was really cool. They had at the art museum here in Raleigh, where I live, they had an MC Escher exhibit. It was like a once in a lifetime thing. I don't know if they ever did it before, and I don't know if they'll ever do it again. It was the most amazing exhibit. It was, I don't know how much it cost, but it was money well spent because it was so inspiring as a magician to see all these optical illusion drawings. So Jeff McBride, MC Escher, Paul Harris, Mike Michaels, Rocco, Rick Smith Jr. is a good friend of mine. Yeah, thinking of some of the people that I did Masters of Illusion with were some of the people that have inspired me. Gazzo,
Oh, yeah.
the street performer Gazzo. He was incredibly inspirational in the beginning when I first started magic because, like I said, I was doing street performing and busking. He played a huge part in my development as a performer. So I would put him on my Mount Rushmore of magic. He's been amazing. In fact, I started street performing, and honestly, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. But then I was working in the magic shop as well at the same time. Like during the day, I would work the magic shop, and then at night, on the weekends, I would go out and perform. I discovered Gazzo on the Cups and Balls. It was a pamphlet. It's now like considered a neo-classic. It's his classic cups and his version of the Cups and Balls with the pouch and everything. And ever since I connected with him, trained with him, which I ended up doing, I went to see him in person. I trained with him for 10 days. When I came back to North Carolina to start busking again, my tips, my hat went way up.
Nice.
Big time. So I give him a lot of credit.
Yeah,
So I hope he hears that.
He's like a walking book of jokes and just...
He's
been
a
doing
character. He's a character. He's so largely misunderstood. He's a really good guy. If people don't know him, sometimes they just think that he doesn't like them or they get easily off-put by his rough exterior, but he's a really, really good guy and he means well. He's incredibly talented, very skilled in many, many ways, and yeah, I have nothing bad to say about him. So,
Same.
yeah, he's a walking encyclopedia of great street stories that are all true, too. It's pretty cool.
When'd you get started in Masters of Illusion?
I got started in Masters of Illusion Let's see, 2018, I started working on some new material, and then I had the burning desire to get my material on TV, and I got the opportunity to audition, and I had met some people that were involved in the show years ago at a convention, and just kind of never was able to get to them, but just through a stroke of luck, I finally got to them, and they liked what they saw, I guess, on the tapes that I sent them, and so then set the stage for 2019. I was on season 6, doing my time act that I created, and got an award for that prior, which was really cool. That was towards the end of 2018. And then they liked what I did so much, they wanted me for the season 7, 2020.
Nice.
That's how it happened. It's like the thing, people think, oh, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. It's the same thing. Like I had always dreamed about Masters of Illusion for years and years and years and years, and I just kept grinding away at it and finally got some kind of breakthrough. That's really all it was.
Cool. If you had a unlimited budget in your show, what would be the first thing you would do to improve it?
First thing I would do, unlimited budget, I would probably do a big costume overhaul. I'd probably get all of that work done in one shot, like all this really complex custom pocket costume stuff that I've always ever wanted to do. That would cost a whole heck of a lot of money to do the really super custom stuff that I want. It's like all dreams that I had written down that just don't exist, and that would cost a lot. I'd probably do that. I would do a major overhaul probably on all of I'd probably triple the amount of video equipment I have so I can make even better videos. I would get more things to help me make these props, like better technology. I mean, I have a really happy with the computer that I have now, but I'd probably get like the best of the best out there, like a $10,000 super fast computer so I could do anything I ever wanted. And so it's probably like a huge tech upgrade and a huge costume upgrade. Those are the first things I would do to help my show.
All right. When starting out, now you can answer this for you or just a person getting in magic now. What is the most important thing to focus on?
That's probably, I would say, the best question that you've asked me in this whole series. The most important question. So when getting started in magic, what's the most important thing to focus on?
Yes.
Focusing on how serious you are about magic, because if you're not serious, you're not going to get that far with it, especially nowadays. It's incredibly difficult. So I would say to back up even further and ask yourself the question, how serious am I at this? Am I really serious about this? And if you're not, it's going to be very challenging. Or I mean, it's going to be challenging either way. It's going to be very difficult to overcome those challenges. So, and then I would say that that's the first question, how serious am I? The second big question is, how can I have a plan for myself to set up my finances properly so I don't end up wasting all my money and being a broke magician, another broke artist, as there are so many broke artists. So you want to avoid that.
That's probably the hardest thing.
Money management is usually one of those boring things that nobody cares about, but it's the most important.
Let's say you have $100 to get started in magic. What would you recommend they get?
I recommend they get a few books. One of them is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and read that first. It's not a magic book, but it's a magical book because it will transform your life. I would recommend probably spending most of that money on self-improvement and money management courses, and then with the little money left over, you really don't need that much when you start. Buy yourself a few decks of cards, and I would say probably J.B. Bobo's Modern Coin Magic. That's about $10.
Yep.
That's a Dover publication. That was one of my first books. I wore that thing out. The spine is all cracked.
Same.
That's a great, only $10. That's probably one of the best books ever written on coin magic. It's got like everything. That's how I would do it if I would do it all over again.
All right. Is there any specific beginner books other than that you would throw in there?
Beginner books. Well, let's see. Some beginner books I have right here behind me.
I see Mark Wilson.
Yeah. Mark Wilson. I would recommend the Tarbell course highly. I would recommend the Encyclopedia of Silk Magic if you could still find it. And yeah, that's where I would start. Tarbell, J.B. Bobo's Modern Coin Magic, Encyclopedia. No, I'm sorry, Mark Wilson. That was actually my first real magic book. Mark Wilson's Complete Course in Magic. Great book. Great book. See this Blackstone thing?
Yeah, I was going to ask about that.
That's something I made on the 3D printer, actually. There we go. And so is that hourglass. That's.
There we go.
So yeah, if you want to learn more about what I make and how I make custom props for magicians, like I'm doing for Mike, check out utilitygaffs.com. That'll be posted at the end, I believe, in the credits somewhere. And
Yeah.
I'm online, ShaunJMagic.com. That's my website, and I'm on Instagram. It's where I'm pretty active at ShaunJMagic.
Let's jump into the ending here. We're gonna do
Okay.
a lightning round where we ask lightning quick questions to get to know you better as a human being.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I am ready. I'm stoked. I'm hydrated.
All right.
I'm hydrated. There we go.
What's your favorite?
Okay, I'm back.
Okay. What's your favorite
Well,
color?
Red.
Favorite cereal?
Favorite cereal? Granola. Homemade granola.
Favorite band?
Shoot. Favorite band? Anything that plays on the lo-fi hip-hop instrumental playlist on YouTube. Anything.
Okay. Apple or
That works.
Android?
Huh? Apple or Android? Apple.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
No, never.
And finally, what is your pet peeve in magic?
Oh, really? You're going to ask me? Okay. My pet peeve in magic is it's both a blessing and a curse. So I mentioned social media earlier in the interview. My pet peeve in magic is, like I said, I guess it has its place, but it's just frustrating to me, like when I meet people in person that are really good at performing magic on social media, but they actually can't hold a natural interpersonal conversation when you meet them. That's a big pet peeve to me. It's like, I don't know, I just think interpersonal skills are really important, and when you can't interact with people and you're only just used to performing for like a frame this big and actually not like having a give or take conversation, that bugs me. But hey, that's just my own personal pet peeve. People can do whatever they want. You asked me what my pet peeve was, so that's a pet peeve. That bugs me. But there you go.
All right. Is there anything you want to tell the people at home? Anything you want to push, advertise?
Sure.
A project coming up that someone should watch out for? Anything like that?
Sure. So yeah, first one that's already pretty much out there. Check out Mike Michael's Chronolabs. He's making the most amazing custom watches. I am helping him with that, so you will see my art and my artwork there. Chronolab.co. My own website for custom design is utilitygaffs.com, where I take on custom projects. I make custom gaffs and gimmicks for magicians using custom 3D CAD design, 3D printing. And then finally, just keep an eye out for a really big project that will hopefully be coming out In December, it will be a big release with Murphy's Magic. It's something that I'm helping another amazing magician produce, and it's going to be a great best-selling effect. That's all I'll say.
All right. Shaun J., thanks for agreeing to be interrogated. For those listening at home, we'll be dropping these once a week, every Friday. If you have any suggestions or guests you'd like to see, leave them in the comments down below. Or if you'd like to contact me for something, drop me an email at theofficialtravesty@gmail.com. Thanks for listening and have a day.
Follow the official travesty at Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or email him at theofficialtravesty@gmail.com.
Like, comment, and subscribe, or else.
My name is Shaun J., and I've been interrogated.